Hi, everybody. I am so excited because I get to read your next book to you guys, and we're going to be reading The Wizard of Oz. Now, you probably have all seen the movie. Many of you may not have read the book. I want to tell you a little bit about the author, L. Frank Baum. He was born in 1856 in New York City, and he wrote The Wizard of Oz the 1900s. So it says The Wizard of Oz was first published in 1900. And it became so popular among its readers that Baum wrote 13 sequels to the original story. So if you think about it, that means this book was written 120 years ago, and it's still a very popular story. So let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 1, The Cyclone. Dorothy lived with her Aunt Em and Uncle Henry on a small farm in Kansas. Their tiny house stood alone on a large flat prairie. Dorothy had only one friend, her dog Toto. He was a small black dog who loved to jump and play. One day while Dorothy and Toto were playing, they heard the awful sound of a storm. The wind roared and the dust blew smoky circles in the air. Dorothy was frightened. Uncle Henry stopped working and shouted, "There's a cyclone coming! Run for the cellar!" A cyclone is a terrible storm. Even little Toto wanted to run away. He jumped from Dorothy's arms, ran into the house, and hid under the bed. Dorothy followed him into the house. Then a strange thing happened. The house turned around and around, and then it rose through the air. Toto ran out from under the bed and barked loudly. It was very dark, and the house swayed back and forth. Dorothy held Toto in her arms and listened to the wind. She was frightened. Aunt Em and Uncle Henry were safe in the cellar. She was all alone. Hours passed. The house tossed and turned in the storm. Finally, Dorothy closed her eyes and fell asleep. Chapter 2, The Munchkins. After a long time, Dorothy woke up. Everything was very quiet. Bright sunshine came through the windows. Toto pressed his cold nose against Dorothy's face. "Where am I?" asked Dorothy. "What happened to Uncle Henry and Aunt Em?" She ran to the door and looked out at a magical land. All around her were beautiful green trees and colorful flowers. Tiny purple birds sang as they flew from tree to tree. Dorothy had never seen such a lovely place. Suddenly she heard a small voice say, "Welcome to the land of Munchkins." Dorothy turned around and there were 3 men and 1 woman standing in a circle. They were all about the same size as Dorothy, but they looked like grown-ups. They wore hats that rose to a small point about a foot above their heads. Tiny bells tinkled when they moved. The men wore strange blue suits and had long white beards. The woman wore a long gown covered with stars. She made a bow and in a sweet voice said, "How can we thank you for killing the Wicked Witch of the East? You have set us free." Dorothy was shocked. "There must be some mistake," she said. "I have not killed anyone." The tiny woman pointed to the house. "Look, your house landed on the witch. Those are her feet sticking out from under a block of wood." "Oh dear," cried Dorothy, "I'm so sorry." "There's nothing you can do," said the woman. "She was a very wicked witch, and she made the Munchkins slaves for many years. Now, thanks to you, we are free." "Are you a Munchkin?" asked Dorothy. "No," answered the woman. "I'm the Good Witch of the North." Dorothy had never heard of a good witch. Now the kind woman explained that Dorothy was now in the land of Oz. In the land of Oz, there were 4 witches. The witches who lived in the north and the south were good witches, and the people loved them. But the witches who lived in the east and west were wicked. "Now you will have to kill the Wicked Witch of the East," explained the gentle woman. "There is only one wicked witch still alive." Now Dorothy understood. She was happy to have helped the Munchkins, but she wanted to return to Kansas and see her Uncle Henry and Aunt Em. The Good Witch and the Munchkins had never heard of Kansas. Dorothy was a long, long way from home. She began to cry. She felt very lonely in this strange land. When the Good Witch saw that Dorothy was crying, she took off her cap and balanced the point on the end of her nose. She counted to 3. The cap changed into a slate. On the slate were the words, "Let Dorothy go to the Emerald City." Dorothy dried her tears. "You must go to the Emerald City. Maybe the Wizard of Oz can help you," said the Good Witch. "Who is the Wizard of Oz?" asked Dorothy. He is a great wizard, answered the good witch. He is more powerful than all of us put together. He lives in the Emerald City. Only he can help you return to Kansas. How can I get to the Emerald City? Asked Dorothy. You must walk, answered the good witch. You will see a yellow brick road. Follow that road and you will find the Wizard of Oz. Then the good witch kissed Dorothy on the forehead. It was a magical kiss, and it left a round, shining mark. It would protect Dorothy on her long trip. The Munchkins gave Dorothy the silver slippers that the Wicked Witch of the East had worn. They had a special magic, but no one knew what that was. Dorothy put on the silver slippers, waved goodbye to her new friends, and she and Toto began their journey to the Emerald City. Chapter 3, The Scarecrow. Dorothy and Toto followed the yellow brick road for many miles. After a while, they stopped beside a big cornfield and sat down to rest. Not too far away, Dorothy could see a scarecrow. He was placed high on a pole so that he would scare the birds away from the ripe corn. The scarecrow's head was a small sack stuffed with straw. Someone had painted its face with eyes, a nose, and a mouth. It was dressed in a blue suit and wore old boots and a pointed blue hat. While Dorothy was looking at the scarecrow, she was surprised to see one of the eyes slowly wink at her. Then the figure nodded his head in her direction. Did you speak? Asked Dorothy. Certainly, answered the scarecrow. How do you do? I'm pretty well, thank you, replied Dorothy. How are you? I'm not feeling well, said the scarecrow. This pole is stuck up my back and I can't get it down. Dorothy reached up and lifted the figure off the pole. Since the scarecrow was made of straw, he was very light. Thank you very much, said the scarecrow. I feel like a new man. All this seemed very strange to Dorothy. She had never seen a stuffed man who could walk and talk. Who are you and where are you going? Asked the scarecrow. My name is Dorothy, she said, and I'm going to the Emerald City to ask the Great Oz to send me back to Kansas. But the scarecrow had never heard of the Great Oz or the Emerald City. Sadly, he explained to Dorothy that since his head was stuffed with straw, he had no brains. Dorothy felt very sorry for the unhappy scarecrow. Do you think, he asked, that if I go to the Emerald City with you, the Great Oz will give me some brains? I cannot tell, she answered, but you may come with me if you like. If Oz will not give you any brains, you will be no worse off than you are now. The scarecrow nodded his head in agreement and joined Dorothy and Toto on their journey to the Emerald City. The Tin Man, Chapter 4. After a few hours, the road began to get rough. Walking grew difficult, and the scarecrow fell many times. But since he was made of straw, he never got hurt. Soon the daylight faded away, and the sky grew very dark. Dorothy could not see at all, but the scarecrow said he could see in the dark just as well as in the light. Dorothy asked him to stop when he saw a house, for she was becoming very tired. After a little while, the scarecrow stopped. I see a cottage built of logs and branches. Shall we go there? Oh, yes, answered Dorothy. I'm really very tired. When they reached the cottage, Dorothy fell fast asleep with Toto beside her. The scarecrow, who never needed to sleep, stood in the corner and waited for morning. As the sun came up, Dorothy was wakened by an awful groan. The sound seemed to come from somewhere in the forest. Dorothy saw something shining not far from where she stood. When she walked deeper into the forest, she saw a remarkable thing. Standing beside a large tree was a man made completely of tin. He held an axe in his hand. Dorothy looked at him in amazement. Did you groan? She asked. Yes, answered the Tin Man. I've been groaning for a long time, but no one has ever come to help me. What can I do for you? Asked Dorothy. Get an oil can and oil my joints, answered the Tin Man. They're so rusty I cannot move. Dorothy ran back to the cottage and found the oil can. The Tin Man told her where to put the oil. In just a few minutes, the Tin Man was able to move. How can I ever thank you? He said. I might have stood in that forest for years if you hadn't saved me. How did you happen to be here? Dorothy explained that she, Toto, and the Scarecrow were all on their way to the Emerald City to see the Great Oz. When she told him this, the Tin Man began to think. "Do you suppose Oz could give me a heart?" he asked. "The Wicked Witch of the East cast an evil spell on me as I was out there chopping wood. She turned me into tin and took away my heart." Dorothy thought for a moment. "Why, I think so," she answered. "It would be as easy as giving Scarecrow brains." So the Tin Man picked up his axe and his oil can and joined his new friends on their journey to Oz. Chapter 5. The Cowardly Lion. As Dorothy and her friends continued on their way through the forest, they heard a terrible roar. The next moment, a great lion ran into the road. Dorothy and her two friends were very frightened, but little Toto ran ahead and barked at the huge beast. When the lion saw the little dog, he opened up his mouth as if to bite him. Dorothy became so angry at this that she rushed forward and slapped the lion on the nose. "Don't you dare bite Toto," she shouted. "You ought to be ashamed of yourself, a big lion like you trying to bite a little dog." "I didn't bite him," said the lion as he rubbed his nose with his paw. "No, but you tried to," Dorothy answered. "You're nothing but a coward." The lion hung his head in shame. He confessed to Dorothy and her friends that although he was supposed to be king of the beasts, he really was a coward. Large tears fell from his eyes as he told the travelers his sad story. The poor lion was afraid of almost everything and everybody. The Scarecrow stopped for a moment and scratched his straw head. Then he said, "I'm going to the Emerald City to ask the Great Oz to give me brains. Maybe Oz could give you courage." The lion wiped away his tears. "If I only had courage, then I could truly be king of the beasts." So Dorothy, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man invited the lion to join them on their journey to the Emerald City. The lion agreed, and the friends continued to follow the yellow brick road toward the home of the Great Oz. We've just finished the first 5 chapters of the book, and I'm having a guess that some of you have noticed some things that were really different about this book compared to the movie. So let's talk about that for a second. At the beginning, Dorothy right away, the storm is there. It's just there and it's happening, and Dorothy goes and gets in her bed, and next thing you know, she is in Munchkin Land. In the movie, many things happen before Dorothy ever gets to Munchkin Land. The storm starts coming. Toto runs away, though. The woman gets her. She's got her in the bicycle. Oh, it's traumatic. It's all traumatic. And the farmhands are helping get everything gathered together because this big storm is coming. The wind's blowing really hard. And we don't meet any of those people in the book. In fact, we don't even meet Aunt Em and Uncle Henry. We're just meeting Dorothy, and the storm is there like that. So that's one big difference. Another thing is when the house lands on the Wicked Witch of the North, the Bad Witch, she ends up meeting the Munchkins and the Good Witch, and the Good Witch does something kind of different. The Good Witch gives her the silver slippers, not the ruby slippers. They were silver. And she gives her a kiss on her forehead. And there was a picture of that in the book. I don't remember that from the movie at all, because that was, remember, good luck. That was her good luck from the witch on her journey to find, the great and powerful Oz. So Dorothy right away sets out. And in our first 4 chapters, our first actually 5 chapters then, we meet all of our main characters. So Dorothy meets the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. So that's kind of where we're at. If you can think of any other things that come to mind when you think back to the movie, and actually what you could do if you wanted to is, as we're reading this, I should have looked. I don't know whether we can find this movie on Netflix or Hulu or any of those channels. I'm not sure. Some of you may even have it because some of you have got really extensive movie collections. But we'll certainly try to find the movie. But anyhow, so those are some of the things that I noticed. Please continue to keep watching or keep listening and see if there are things that you come up with. I think you're definitely going to find more in the next few chapters. So thanks for reading along with me, The Wizard of Oz, and we'll be reading the next couple chapters, 5 through 8 next. I guess actually 6 through 8 next. So stay with me and we'll see what happens.